Welcome to the second episode of Save the Franchise. I'm Keegan Fisher. I've got my two co-hosts, Tyler and Austin, here today. It's Austin's first time on the show. Excited to have him here. Austin, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing pretty good. So excited to be here. I just can't wait to dive into this topic and kind of kick off some awesome fun time with just talking about football with the boys.
All right, let's get it. Tyler, how's your day been?
It's been very good. Excited to go talk about some Patriots football.
A little bit more exciting this off season than maybe the past few off seasons. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the topic. All right, as Tyler said, we're talking about the Patriots today. Last year they were 4-13. Haven't really been the same since Tom Brady left in 2019. Kind of taken a big step down from that elite franchise tier, running the AFC East for about a decade, for about 2 decades. So yeah, we're gonna break it down. First things first, we're gonna start talking about their offseason. Brought in a new coaching staff this offseason. Mike Vrabel taking that head coaching spot. Um, Last coaching in Tennessee, bringing back Josh McDaniels for the third time, and we got Terrell Williams, who served with Vrabel before and was previously just in Detroit, working with their D line. So yeah, Austin, how you feeling about the new coaching staff?
Yeah, dude, I'm so fired up by this Mike Vrabel hire. I was thinking that we should have hired him last year when we decided to go the direction of Gerard Mayo. Once we kind of made that hire with Mayo, I was like, okay, this maybe makes sense. Like an internal guy knows the system, was basically Kraft's understudy, was kind of grooming him to be this coach for a while, knowing that Belichick was on his way out. And so I was feeling the spirit a little bit, but I never really thought he was going to have enough of an offensive mind to really kind of get us back to where we want to be. I feel like we as a franchise have always had a good defense. It always takes that offensive mind to carry us forward. So during the dynasty, we had that defense with Belichick, and then we had the offensive mind with Tom Brady. He ran that offense. And so you had this one of a kind defensive mind in Belichick, one of a kind offensive mind, and Brady really made it work. But now, even though we kind of have this legacy of good defense that has really honestly continued, even in some of these really downturn years lately, we have not had the offensive mind we need. So super fired up by Vrabel. I think he's going to come in. We've seen what he has done with Tennessee over the last many years. Taking some rosters that really didn't have a lot going on. Bringing in a guy like Ryan Tannehill that kind of hadn't accomplished much with Miami, but bringing him in there and really kind of having some success, making quite a few playoff games. I think winning a few, bringing having Derrick Henry in there, kind of being a league leading rusher. Definitely a big fantasy guy for a bunch of years. We've seen that. So I didn't think it made any sense for the Titans to fire him. But I'm so excited to bring him back. He is a Patriot guy. He's a Patriot way individual. Like he grew up, like as a football player through the franchise, was part of some of those big wins, played with guys like Tom Brady, Teddy Bruschi, and stuff like that. So he can carry forward that kind of Patriot way mentality we want, but he has that offensive mind. We already see him working with the offensive line, literally getting in there, getting gritty with a guy like Will Campbell that we're definitely going to talk about later in this episode. So yeah, I'm so fired up.
All right, awesome. Tyler, you wanna talk about the new coaching staff a little bit?
Yeah, no, I also am absolutely in love with that Vrabel hire. I think Vrabel is what he is he's a culture changer, and that's also what Belichick was too for the team. Belichick was more of like a well-oiled machine type guy, while Vrabel is more energy but still values discipline, and I think that's kind of what a team needs. And in the current NFL, we've been seeing a lot of the traditional standard coaching hires be these young shot offensive coordinators. However, those teams really haven't had that much playoff success in recent years, and it's really been the culture guys who've been successful. I just don't think there are that many culture guys out there who are truly elite. But Vrabel, on the other hand, he definitely is. We saw with those Titans teams that what was it? They got the one seed that one season. I know they didn't have the greatest playoff performance that year, but they still were the one seed. And then there was a season where they were the six seed, and they beat the Patriots that year. They beat Tom Brady in the first round, uh, came through, and then beat the Ravens with MVP Lamar in the second round, and then ran into the almighty Chiefs. But I don't know. I think the Vrabel signing is going to change the current culture, something that I don't think Mayo was able to do. And I think that's what the Mayo signing originally was. It was trying to accomplish the same thing. But I think Kraft realized it wasn't happening, and he wanted to try a new guy out. And I think the guy he chose is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, that's something I respect with Kraft is kind of making that decision early too. Like realizing we got a guy like Drake May that we're also going to get into. Like this window is starting to open. I like that he didn't waste more time with Mayo, seeing that it might not work out and kind of flipping the switch and going to a guy like Vrabel that again has more proved success to really hit the ground running more.
All right, yeah. Thanks for those thoughts, boys. Yeah, I really like this. I really like this transition. However, I think there were a couple candidates out there this cycle that I would have preferred significantly over Vrabel, and I understand Tyler, you make a good point. A lot of those hotshot offensive coordinators, they haven't been the guys. They haven't been the guys who have really transformed stuff. But I don't really care. Drake May, and we're going to talk about him later. Drake May is my priority. I want Drake May to develop. I want things running on all cylinders with Drake May. I think he's special enough and has enough potential that it's different than a lot of those situations the hotshot OCs have gone to recently in a lot of cases. And so I look at the Ravens offensive coordinator, and then obviously the Lions OC, who did, Ben Johnson, he swaps, he goes to Chicago. If he would have taken the Patriots job in a heartbeat over Vrabel, in my opinion, that would have been an easy decision for me. Um, Todd Monken out of the Ravens organization, I'm really surprised he didn't get a job. I think sticking him in the way he's leveled up Lamar as a passer in the past 2 years, yeah, I'd want that for Drake May. But I get it. And I do think part of this scenario that really makes me feel better about it, bringing back Josh McDaniels. I like this hire. I think a lot of people are going to look at what he did with the Raiders and be very hesitant to embrace him. Josh McDaniels has always been a very good OC. He has well-structured offenses, and this was true even in Vegas. Like the offensive structure was fine. What they were trying to do was fine. You can argue about roster building and whether or not he was developing people well enough, etc. But I like Josh McDaniels. I think some of the stuff you saw him do with Cam Newton, you can apply over to Drake
Hmm.
May. Similar-ish body types. I think Drake May has been underutilized as a runner, but we'll get to all that later. I think Josh McDaniels is going to be the right type of guy to unlock that.
Yeah,
So,
no, I,
yep,
I
go ahead.
totally agree, bro. I love Josh McDaniels. Obviously, he's been part of the dynasty. But like you said, he maybe didn't have success in that coaching role, but that's okay. Some people just excel, I feel like, in different leadership roles. And I just don't, maybe he just isn't cut out for coach from that mentality that there's so many other buckets that you have to be touching as part of head coach. But in that OC role, man, he really excels. And I agree with you to really see how he utilizes Drake May, how he's used some of these other guys. I will say though, I was scared with some of those Drake May runs towards the end of the season. So we got to do that intelligently for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the free agent class from this offseason. Tyler, why don't you give me your number one free agent? Not necessarily in terms of impact, but just who do you think stands out from the free agency class? Who did you like the pickup of, or someone you were maybe worried about the amount of money they gave him?
Yeah. One guy that I am actually the reason I'm choosing this guy is because I really don't know how this contract will play out, and I'm going to take Milton Williams, former
Mm.
Eagle. The fact that he got 26 million completely surprised me. And not because I don't think he's worth that on a football field. I just didn't think his market value was there at the time because I think he only had 5 or 6 starts ever for the Eagles during his time here. And the fact that he's getting paid near top of the line interior pass rusher money is pretty concerning. However, he is 25 years old and was an absolutely critical part to our Super Bowl run. Like you can make the case that in the last Super Bowl, he was the best player on the field, which you're gonna get paid if you do that. And so, yeah, about him. Some more about him. So now he gets to be right next to Christian Barmore. Obviously not as good as Jalen Carter, but wow, that interior D line is starting to look really scary. And I feel like in the AFC, well, it's obviously dominated by these elite QBs, and I feel like they do a better job handling edge pressure than they do interior pressure. And I think as a result, I think guys like Lamar, maybe Mahomes might be a little bit unicornish, but like Joe Burrow and even Josh Allen, having that interior pressure against those guys, I think is really important in the AFC. And I mean, the Patriots had so much money to spend, so overall, I do like this signing. So, but I think it could also go pretty badly too.
A lot of money there. I think they paid a couple million, 3, 4-ish million maybe over asking price from other teams. And I think they just really wanted to get him in the building and lock him up. It's gonna be interesting to see how all that plays out. But they had a ton of cap space.
Yeah.
They needed to get some players that even if they're not what the contracts say, they play very, they're stars. They can take those roles and help take over games. All right, Austin, give me your free agent.
Yeah, no, I'm going to throw out a name that a lot of people might not expect, but it's Morgan Moses, bringing in offensive tackle from the Jets. People are going to look at the age, people are going to look at the money. 24 million for 3 years. I see this as a great hire. I think our biggest issue last year was protecting Drake May. We got this great weapon. We got our quarterback of the future. He had no time to throw. Every single pass, he's running for his life. He's got those legs. He showed them off. But that's not how you excel in the NFL. We've definitely seen how the Chiefs have gone out and protected Patrick Mahomes, and we've seen where Patrick Mahomes has had bad protection and when he's had good protection, and just the insane impact that plays on just the passing ability, just the ability to read through progressions, especially for a rookie QB. And so I love that. I think our biggest need was protection, and we went out and addressed it with a guy that's proven, and a guy that isn't looking for a ton of money, but I think still has a lot left in the tank. So to be able to pull him from the Jets as well, our little brother that we love to beat up on. So I like bringing in Morgan Moses to protect that edge.
All right, yeah, yeah. It's a really interesting contract. You're gonna see how that age plays out. But man, if it works out, you gotta plug and play right tackle, and it's a good thing to have.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm promised we're gonna talk about Stefon Diggs a little bit later, but I'm actually gonna pull another free agent that people not might not be expecting quite as much, although he did get a good deal of money, and it's Carlton Davis III. I think that putting Carlton Davis into this defense, and you're putting him across from Christian Gonzalez, who we've seen some really fun sparks from. I think this could be really good. Last year, Carlton Davis playing on the Lions was extraordinary. If you want an example of some of that, go watch him playing Justin Jefferson twice last year. This guy was carrying him across the field on crossers. There's not that many guys who can stand up, take Justin Jefferson's little shuffle move, and then run with him across the field. He's not the fastest burner ever, but he creates separation off that step, and he's gone. And Carlton Davis was playing some serious man-to-man coverage last year, and I think the Patriots with him and Christian Gonzalez could have a really fun cornerback duo that's going to simplify coverages so much. It's going to allow you to do a lot of fun things on the back end, and it's going to let that defensive line that's kind of been renewed with a lot of players really get in there and do their thing. So that's our free agents that we really wanted to get in and make sure we talked about. We're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to talk about the draft, go through some things briefly, and then we're really going to dig into sort of the really biggest topics we want to talk about. So I think we'll do the same thing with draft boys. Let's pick out one pick each and kind of talk. If you want to talk value, that's cool. If you want to talk impact, that's great. Or maybe it's a pick you didn't like so much. Go for it. Let's start with you, Austin. You got a draft pick you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go heavy hitter. I'm gonna go simple. I'm gonna go right back where I was talking. My boy Will Campbell, number fourth overall out of LSU. When this man got up on stage and started crying, saying that he will die for Drake May, bro, I practically ordered my jersey on the spot. It will be coming soon. Dude, I'm so excited for Mr. Will Campbell. I'm sure there's some of y'all out there that are familiar with the Drake May Lover Instagram account. I'm already an adamant fan of the Will Campbell Lover account. We got Drake May Monday, we got Will Campbell Wednesday. In my opinion, great time to be a Patriot fan. Dude, this guy's gonna come in. He's gonna play at left tackle, and he's gonna be like some of these offensive linemen we've taken in the last few years. I mean, you can look at the stats. These guys that are drafted in the top picks are sometimes some of the most predictable, just consistent guys. We have, sometimes quarterbacks, running backs, receivers go, and we never really know who's going to be the best. Oftentimes, it's not the number one receiver that ends up excelling. We can see where Justin Jefferson was taken. People like Jamar Chase. They're not always just necessarily like the first guy off the board. But you got a guy like Will Campbell, who is the first offensive tackle off the board, first lineman, and I think he's going to live up to the name. There were guys up on the board, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. We were wondering, all right, are they going to fall to the Patriots? And I definitely had my eyes out for those guys. I think they would be really exciting players as well. But to say I'm disappointed in Will Campbell would be far from the truth. I think he's gonna come in, he's gonna lock down that left tackle, and he's gonna be there many years. And I think we're really gonna see Drake May grow as part of that partnership.
Hmm. So I'm just gonna push back a little bit. You want to talk a little bit? What do you think about? So not only are the arms pretty short for an offensive tackle, falls below most of the standard metrics that teams typically look for, but the wingspan as well is pretty short. He's a little bit less broad, and maybe might not quite have that reach. What do you think about that? I mean, it was a big topic leading into the draft. People were speculating he might even fall out of the top 10 purely because of that, but they loved the tape. What do you think?
Yeah, no, we're always going to see these metrics and like wonder how it's actually going to translate to the NFL. We'll have people with their 40-yard dash time, or maybe it's a quarterback with their throw distance, or a wide receiver's hand size, things like that. These metrics are certainly important, and you don't want to just like disregard them. And I think it's certainly valid to say that he might drop because of it. But you mentioned the tape. I mean, look at it. This guy started in the SEC, who we know to be one of the toughest leagues to play in. You can make arguments for the Big Ten. Needless to say, SEC football is real-time football, and these pass rushers that he's going against are NFL guys. I mean, you can look at all these big-time, like whether it's LSU, Bama, LSU, Ohio State, in some like cross-divisional games. Maybe LSU's overplaying Georgia. All these guys that are pass rushing are ending up in the NFL, and so it really is like a Sunday out there when he's blocking and no trouble. I mean, you see him locking down some of the biggest pass rushers in college football. So it really doesn't worry me too much. But we'll see how it plays out on Sundays.
All right, great. Tyler, you want to kick us off with your draft pick?
Yeah, the one draft pick that I really was happy with for the Patriots was Will Campbell's teammate, Braden Swinson out of LSU. A very He's not the most athletic edge rusher out there. I mean, he's older too. However, he had 10 sacks in his senior season at LSU. Once again, also facing against the best tackles in the country. And he is a little bit bigger of an edge too. He has some solid size on him. So even though his like raw athletic speed is not high, the fact that that you got him in the fifth round just is kind of ridiculous. I thought he was almost because he's a very high floor player, and for a team that already has some very high upside edge rushers like Keon White, uh, getting a guy who is more of like a run first type guy, but who also still has the pass rushing production. And originally in his career, yeah, he started at Oregon, did not have any real production there. Then when we got to LSU, he hit his stride, and I think he's only going to improve when he's in New England with Vrabel.
You have any thoughts on that, Austin?
No, dude, I was pretty excited by that pick too. All of what Tyler was saying, like the pass rush ability, the value, and again, just another big SEC guy. I feel like you could stress it too much, but I think the truth still is there that these guys are playing against some big time prospects. So to see success there really translates pretty well. I mean, you're gonna have these guys that come from other leagues and conferences, and a lot of times there's a lot of good value there and it translates and it's kind of like a diamond in the rough. I mean, you could even say that about like Patrick Mahomes. Like it wasn't a guy that like everyone was talking about all the time. It's still Big 12 football at the time. But it's like not necessarily like these big time SEC games that like everyone's watching. And so you still go find them and they translate pretty well. But an LSU Tiger is someone that's playing in these big Saturday games every single week. Again, Bama, Georgia, all these big games. It translates pretty well. So I was pretty excited to see him again, especially at that position.
Yeah, awesome. So my draft pick here, uh, Kyle Williams. I love Kyle Williams, and I'm certainly not the only one, but there are some things I like about this fit so much. One, I think that slot receiver role. There's plenty of guys who are on the Patriots roster right now who can fill it and can play it some, but Kyle Williams, I think, is a true slot receiver who's going to be able to play on all three levels out of the slot and really make that a much more threatening position. And just so to go over, a highly productive player, but playing in Washington State, not the most competitive football there, but 70 receptions, 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 17.1 yards per reception last year. Um, he gets open and he really knows how to run those routes. He throttles in and out of those breaks so well, and I think he does a better job than people give him credit for. I think because he's small, but he does a better job than people give him credit for playing physically through and avoiding defenders' hands, and that's gonna be more difficult at the NFL level, and he's gonna go through some growing pains. Certainly not projecting wide receiver one status off the rip, but I think he's going to make an impact year one in this offense, and sky's the limit down the line. I think this is a guy who, he's never going to be an elite NFL receiver, but he can be a high quality number one out of the slot who plays with a ton of intelligence if he gets that connection going with Drake Maye, right? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that and seeing him come out to play. I think there's some real juice there. You guys have any thoughts on Kyle Williams?
Yeah, dude, I'm super excited about this Kyle Williams pick too. Like we could go on and on about all the different weapons the Patriots grabbed. I mean, we didn't even mention Trayvon Henderson, second rounder out of Ohio State, like another big hitter. Like I think Kyle Williams is gonna be really good. I mean, again, just look at the film. You see him like burning guys like Travis Hunter. Um, and I think he's going to translate pretty well. I think his style of receiver feeds in well to what Drake May is looking for. A guy that's able to get up and across the field quick. That speed is excellent. The all the metrics, the height, the wingspan is really nice, and so I think he's going to plug and play really well, especially when he can be. He doesn't have to come in and be the number one guy when you've got guys in there like Diggs and another guy like Mac Collins and all the other receivers that we have that have been there in the building or at least in the NFL for quite a while and can kind of build him up. I really like how the receiver room is looking.
All right, great. Um, Yeah, do we want to have any thoughts? Any positions we're surprised they passed on? Tyler, you wanna take that?
Yeah, so they did pretty much okay, just going off the first pick, not surprising at all. Uh Also same thing about running back too. They needed to get weapons and build up the O-line. But however, I am a little bit surprised they didn't take a defensive player higher still, just because you did bring in Vrabel, and I told you I like the Brendan Swinson pick, but waiting until I think the fourth or fifth round to take your first defensive player just feels it's a little bit questionable for a team whose defense wasn't elite by any metrics last season. But I completely understand though. You're trying to build around your franchise QB. But yeah, I do think they could have benefited still from taking an edge a little bit earlier, but
Yeah.
or linebacker even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to agree. I think that defensive line, well, now kind of restocked by free agency, is also a little bit on the older side. And you've still it sounds like Barmore's going to be healthy, but you just never know for sure. And so I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see them draft a nose tackle in a class that was chock full of really good prospects at nose tackle. Just guys who are great, beefy, and can eat up the run. I'm kind of surprised, especially with Vrabel's mentality, and I think that would have loosened up. You could have played a little bit more off coverage and all that, and kind of played your defensive players further from the line of scrimmage, which I think would have just helped that cornerback duo I was talking about earlier. And then the linebacker position, and this wasn't a great draft for linebackers, so I'll give him that, but it feels a little lacking right now. Austin, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't disagree. That's part of the reason why I was kind of excited to maybe get Abdul Carter. I was definitely hoping that the Giants might go Sanders. Obviously, the Giants didn't go Sanders, and he fell a lot further than we expected. Maybe we'll talk about that in a different episode. But yeah, I would have been excited about getting a guy like Abdul Carter or another edge rusher, or at least another defender, maybe earlier in the draft. But looking at who we did get on offense and who we did later get on defense, In hindsight, I don't mind it. I mean, the guys that we ended up taking, I mean, Craig Woodson, safety from Cal. I mean, that guy's electric. I don't know if you've seen his hits, his plays on the ball. I think he's going to plug and play really good. I mean, we talked about bringing in Carlton Davis. I think he's going to be excellent. We got Christian Gonzalez, who I think is only going to continue to excel in his sophomore year, or no further, further succeed in the NFL. I don't think he gets a lot of the attention that he maybe deserves, or definitely not a lot of the recognition. So in the moment, I was feeling a little scared about it, but honestly, in hindsight, I don't mind it.
And I think these are some of the things you're just gonna have to live with when you're looking at a team that's trying to go from 4-13 and maybe take a run at the playoffs this year, but primarily just work out really who they are. These are
Mhm.
the types of things, you're not gonna perfect everything. You're not gonna plug every hole. I think they took a pretty good run at trying to do that, but yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on kind of to the nebulous of of this topic and really dig into this team and where it's going. So let's talk about the leadership front office real quick. Just it seems obviously Bill Belichick as a GM had its ups and downs. When Tom Brady left, it felt like it was mostly downs, and it was kind of struggling to make things all fit together. And now Elliot Wolf has been promoted to full-time GM in 2025. Robert Kraft is still here. I don't know. How do we feel about the front office, y'all? Tyler, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I do like the decision, honestly, to promote Wolf. Uh, I always think for GM, it's so hard to evaluate how good a GM is, which is why sometimes taking the internal hire is good because you've seen him around a building, you know how he is. You're not gambling. However, there's some upside left off the table there because,
Hmm.
for all you know, like just say one of Howie Roseman's, like one of his guys could actually be the next Howie, but
Right.
you never know. That Joe Douglas didn't pan out, so it's still more of a gamble.
Yeah. Well, and Wolf could have been part of the problem for all we know. We don't have that insight.
Yeah, it's impossible to tell, but I feel like at least the ownership, like Kraft, probably had pretty good intel that this guy was positive in order for them to hire him. But the Patriots also are an organization that loves to do these internal hires, keep guys in the building, keep
Mhm.
the culture.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. And I agree that I thought it was a pretty good hire. I talk about all the time how important GM is. I mean, you can see it with Howie Roseman and Brett Veach. I mean, the way that the Eagles and the Chiefs have drafted, brought in players, it's right there. It's just like, man, what's his name? The big Bulls guy. I'm never in. Who was the Bulls' big GM? Big star
You're gonna
of
make us all look
the
bad.
Last Dance. Man, I can never remember all the names in basketball. I'm more of a football guy myself, but you can see how
Jerry
he built
Krause.
like yeah, Jerry
yeah.
Krause, man. You can see how he built like a big dream team. And these GMs really end up being important. I always say that the GM and the owner plays a bigger role, I think, than sometimes we
Hmm.
predict. Obviously, the coach, the OC, the DC, and the quarterback are like the four that we really think about. But really, I think like ownership matters. I mean, kind of talked about it with the Seahawks and the Jets, teams like the Panthers. Man, like these teams have terrible ownership, and that terrible ownership hires terrible GMs, and it just goes all the way down the line. So I think. You can say what you want about Robert Kraft. I think he's a good owner, and he's at least consistent and makes decent hires. And I think Elliot Wolf's been doing a good job.
Yeah. I think you're going to see us talk about owners a lot on Save the Franchise. I think it's a component a lot of people are scared to talk about. I think it's a component that gets underrated by a lot of people. We're going to talk about it and some of those motivations that maybe lead teams to do things they shouldn't be doing from a football perspective. And yeah, I think it's hard to look at Robert Kraft and really think that he is an impediment to building a big time Super Bowl roster. I don't know if he's kind of the guy who's going to write the pure blank checks and really make things easy on his front office like Jeffrey Lurie. But I think definitely top half, maybe even top 10 sort of owner front office group in the league in terms of consistency and really handling things in typically the right way from an overall organizational perspective. So we're gonna get to the biggest, most important topic here today. We gotta cover and dig deep into this one. Drake Maye. Last year, last offseason, the Patriots went out with the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft. They drafted Drake Maye out of North Carolina, and then Drake Maye goes out and didn't put up great stats. In 13 games, with 12 games started, he put up 2,276 yards with 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Um, he had a success rate of about 46%. And yeah, the stats didn't look great. But man, was he playing his heart out? And we have high hopes for him here. I think all three of us are very high on Drake Maye. Austin, why don't you get us going with the highs and the really like what do we love about Drake Maye? Where can the upside go? Like, what's so tantalizing about this player?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always an optimist when it comes to the Patriots, even more so. And when it comes to Drake Maye, he can do no wrong. So take my opinions with a grain of salt. The other boys are going to balance me out. But yeah, let me talk about the good. I mean, my opinions are coming from a guy that did watch all of the Patriots' terrible games last year. I don't know how many people out there on were watching the national, the not even nationally televised New England Patriots games, but I watched it. I saw the way he was playing, and I think that there's two big things. One, it's the heart, and two, it's the decision making. Um, you mentioned the 10 interceptions. I've tried to play quarterback. I'm not very good at quarterback. And when I'm getting rushed and like pressured, I definitely throw more interceptions. So I felt for Drake May out there running for his life. There was even a few of the interceptions that were tipped balls that actually weren't even his fault, from some poor receiver play, that we've definitely the Patriots have tried to address and that we've discussed already in this episode. But yeah, I think that for the most part, he makes good decisions. He tries to not put his body on the line, even though he took some couple ill-advised hits. But yeah, and also the heart. I mean, he really like is excited to be in New England. He's not like a diva type quarterback that comes in and wants to run the show. From what I hear, like everyone in the building really likes him. He is a sponge. He wants to learn. He wants to get better. He wants you to tell him what he's doing wrong and how he can get better. He really is taking an active role in leading the offense and taking on, now coming into sophomore season, being a captain, like really embracing that, taking it seriously, but also knowing like he is still the rookie, like like is still essentially a rookie, like doesn't know everything. And again, just kind of the raw physicality and athleticism, the potential that we see there. I mean, just look back at his North Carolina days, some of these throws that he's making. And the ACC is kind of like a quick, fast-paced move down the field type of conference. I feel like that's what we're seeing with this new Patriots offense, is kind of some of these deep strike abilities, bringing in like guys like Diggs and Williams, even like Mac Hollins, who again are like kind of like down the field type of guys. I think that plays into his ability as well to get outside the pocket, to make plays, to scramble, to throw deep downfield. I mean, he had some incredible plays like down the sideline, throwing to guys like Booty and Pop Douglas, man, like making some crazy good throws, even like while running for his life. So I think with some better offensive line play, with some better protection, just the ability to sit back in the pocket and not have to scramble immediately, having it as an option, but not the only option, is really going to spur on kind of a sophomore season, further breakout with Drake May. Needless to say, I'm really excited for it, and I think it's turning out pretty well.
All right, Tyler, I'm gonna ask you to be the wise sage to kind of tamp this down a little bit because I don't know if I can handle it. So,
Yeah,
Tyler, take
I'm
take it
gonna
away with some of
try.
the limitations and negatives. I know you're still high on him too, but
Yeah,
talk us through it.
first I'm just gonna talk about a little bit more of the positives because they are. I love this guy watching him in college, especially. We are all ACC fans here, so we've watched decent amount of him. His ability to make the off-platform throws, the throws under pressure. He has everything you want. And when you're evaluating QBs, especially from the college level, the number one thing you care about if you're trying to win a Super Bowl is the upside, that ability to raise a franchise's ceiling. And I think that's what Drake may provide, and that's what he showed in his first year. So when I'm evaluating a first year QB, it's very rare for a guy to look like how Jaden Daniels did or uh, like CJ Stroud did 2 years ago. That's just not the norm. But I look for the flashes, and they are definitely there. However, the accuracy was just not as advertised. I don't. really know fully what it was. I mean, he is a first year QB learning a new offense. Uh, the game is so much faster at the NFL level. And I do think his decision making was pretty good for the first part, but it wasn't elite by any means. The interceptions were still high, even though some of them weren't his fault. It's just the accuracy being the biggest issue isn't an insane issue, in my opinion, for a long term development. I do think it does limit their ceiling a tiny bit for this upcoming season, unless he magically fixes that in one season.
Hmm.
But I think for his long term development, I really don't see an accuracy being the factor that really limits him.
Yeah, and so I think there's a few things with that. Just put it out there. Drake May was my number one quarterback in last year's draft class, over Caleb Williams, over Jaden Daniels. Obviously, I'd take Jaden Daniels now, but not by that much, to be honest. I think well maybe by quite a bit. I have Jaden Daniels pretty high. He's I think he's close to a top five quarterback, if not five for me. Um, I, Drake May is pretty close to 10. Uh, he's he's really good. I think the accuracy thing, there's a few points. Obviously, under pressure a lot. That's going to affect it. I think a lot of these younger quarterbacks with all the talent in the world, they come into the NFL and they kind of get so focused on trying to figure out the defenses, learn the new offense, everything they're supposed to be doing on plays, that it leads to them spraying balls because they're not as focused on their technique as they were in college, and they just need to get reacclimated to that. But the other thing, how many Patriots receivers last year did he really feel like he could pin the ball on with high confidence, throw back shoulders, place the ball in places that weren't meant necessarily to be easily caught, but fit in windows? I don't think there was anybody outside of Hunter Henry you could really say that for. In truth, I mean, I know he's through some prayers trying to get back in games to some of his players, but I don't think there was high confidence or belief that those players would adapt and help him, fit the balls into windows and really have the confidence to rip it. So I think that's part of it. Let's just go a little quick roundup, and everybody get quick thought in on Drake May before we move on. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean the last big thing that I didn't even mention was, man, if you saw that last play of regulation against the Tennessee Titans where he's literally running for his life, throws a touchdown, like I think that really kind of ties up everything that I was saying with like the athleticism, the potential, the decision making, the scrambling, the heart, the grit, the want to win for the team. I again, I really like his heart. I think he's going to be a great New England Patriot.
I agree. I think he's going to be a franchise QB for years to come. We really didn't talk about this too much, but there is running upside with him too. He
Mhm.
could be an elite dual threat QB. I mean, he already showed he was a better runner than I expected from what I've seen from him in college in his first year in the NFL. So I assume that's only going to get better. But yeah, no, I do like him long term for New England, obviously.
Yep. 32 yards per game last year on the ground. You guys want to guess how many designed runs Drake May had last year?
I'm gonna go
Pro
with 20.
Probably like less than 10.
He had one designed
One.
run
Wow.
last
Yeah,
year.
we did that one. See, and that
One.
doesn't surprise me. And I like that. I like that
Yeah.
call. I like that we were protecting him. But man, yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as being the franchise quarterback, I know Keegan's gonna like that with having Drake May on his dynasty team. So
Both dynasty teams. Yep. No, so yeah, one designed run last year. I think we're gonna see more of that with Josh McDaniels. He's gonna get him moving, get the wheels on, and I think he's also gonna give May better paths to scramble. Yeah, I think you're gonna see, in particular, trying to pick up first downs in that and extending plays. You're gonna see what Drake May can do. Yeah, the one little bit I'll talk about is, yeah, that offensive line so much more fortified. He's going to have to readapt to that. And
mhm.
I think that might actually this is counterintuitive, but I think that might actually throw off for some of those first couple games, and I think he might actually look a little bit worse than he did at the back end of last season. Those first few games, trying to play in structure, but not having the NFL experience so much to do it. But I think down the line, you're going to see it pay dividends once he figures out how to do it. I think it's just going to unlock everything else, make his scrambling more effective, and everything. We're going to get into how some of the things outside of Drake May's control are going to really help him. So yeah, let's move into that. Let's talk about new weapons and protection. Tyler, you want to hit us up, talk about some of those new weapons? We've kind of been passing over Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, so obviously, yeah, Stefon Diggs is the obvious one that we missed. He looked really good last year before his injury, uh, but it was an ACL tear, and I think he's 33 or 34 years old at this point. How is he going to look post that? It's not like athleticism is that important to Stefon Diggs, but if he loses that quick twitch that he has, how effective will he really be? Will he be better than the countless other molds of receivers that the Patriots have, such as Demario Douglas? Uh, but I mean, you also got Mac Hollins too, which I think is actually a very good scheme fit with what uh,
Sorry.
May's potential is. Like Josh Allen made him look a lot better than he actually is, and I think Drake May can actually do the same thing. He's a guy that you could pin the ball to.
Yeah.
He's still big, tall, fast, and they got him for next to nothing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Big time blocker too. Puts in the
Yep.
sure,
work. I got to give him
Yeah,
that.
I like Mac Hollins, bro.
yeah, but over on a dig signing, I'm kind of neutral on it. I think it could be good, but with the distraction that he could provide, I did not love the signing. How do you feel about it,
Yeah.
Austin?
I know I had mixed feelings because I really liked him when he was on the Vikings. I thought he was an excellent receiver. Had him in fantasy a few years. It always bumps up the personal feelings a little bit. Once he went to the Bills, I instantly started hating him as a Patriot fan does. But I've always thought he was pretty good. I agree he was doing really well down in Houston before the injury. So considering that injury, considering his past success, it is kind of toss up. I almost, and especially with this new drama that maybe we can touch on here in a second, like I almost feel like how I did with the Antonio Brown signing, where it was like this could be excellent, or we could just drop him. I mean, we gave him a decent amount of money. We went out and gave him, what, like $63.5 million for 3 years. I mean, it's not cheap, but I think it was worth the risk to see him come in and to see what he can provide. At a minimum, just being an NFL vet, being someone that the other receivers can learn from, that Drake May can kind of learn from, and hopefully going out and helping some of these other rookie guys develop. Now Kyle Williams doesn't have to be the guy. Hopefully Stefon Diggs can be the guy, and we'll see. I feel like he really is kind of a high ceiling, low floor type of guy. And yeah, we have seen this kind of drama with being on a boat and handing out drugs to people. It really is kind of like it gives me Giants boat photo feelings. So I really hope it doesn't like put a stain on like one his like recovery process. I wish the video that I saw of Stefon Diggs last week was him running in a pool. Well, actually no, I wouldn't want him to be running in a pool. I'd want it to be past that. I'd want it to be some other recovery videos and really maybe being out at a field with Drake May or something. And not on a boat handing out drugs to people that aren't even his girlfriend. So, yeah, I'm hoping we can get him back in the building. He can focus up. His next posts were actually some agility drills, and the agility is looking good. The knee is looking all right. So, I think he can plug and play pretty well, and I think he can play alongside a lot of these guys. We haven't even mentioned Kendrick Bourne, who's coming back. Also kind of made a return from the ACL, also kind of later in age. So, but we've seen the ability that he has to play to get downfield. We have Pop Douglas, and we also haven't even mentioned Hunter Henry, who I don't think is like the most elite tight end in the NFL. But he made a lot of big plays last year, and I think he plays really well with Drake May. If you've only played Madden football once, the commentators love to say, "Oh, that QB loves his tight end. When he gets in trouble, he finds him." It really is true. And I saw Drake May finding Hunter Henry when he needed him, and even lots of design plays for him. I think he's a good pass catcher. I think he has some good speed. So I think we have a lot of people to throw to, that better coverage up front, and I think it's looking decent. I don't think we're going to win every game. I don't think Drake May is going to be the Super Bowl MVP that in my heart I believe he's going to be. But I think it's a good start for a rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah, to quickly touch on Stefon Diggs, I think what he really does is buy you time to figure out
Mm.
who you want those long-term weapons for Drake May to be, kind of for the next 5 to 7 years. He buys you time. He can fill that role for a while, and you can figure out who you want to get in the building to be that guy long term. That's kind of how I view it. I don't think he's gonna play six. I don't think he's gonna play 17 games this year in all likelihood. You're gonna see him missing some time. I don't think he's gonna be uber productive or anything, but I think he's still capable of filling the number one role in all likelihood, and especially with the new additions and all that, it's just going to make the wide receiver room so much more workable. They're gonna be better there. What I really want to talk about, that we haven't really hit too much on, Travion Henderson, drafted in the second round. This is a guy lightning quick, great home run burst and speed. This kind of reminds me, and gotta take a step back here for a second, but it kind of reminds me of Sonic and Knuckles. It kind of reminds me of the Detroit Lions backfield duo. Okay, Ramondre Stevenson is not quite David Montgomery, I don't think. Maybe with the new coaching staff he'll be better, because I do think David Montgomery has gotten a little bit overrated. Like he's a tough yard worker, but he doesn't get too much more than what's blocked in most situations. And Ramondre Stevenson is very similar, and I think has a little bit more juice left, from a power perspective. Um, and then Travion Henderson is not Jameer Gibbs, but man, he's got that home run burst that Gibbs has. It's just you're missing a little bit of the make a man miss in open space. I think that's the real difference there. I think the agility side to side isn't quite what it is with Gibbs. But you've got the home run burst. He can run in a lot of different schemes, I think, and pairing him with a guy who can get the dirty yardage, play more of your red zone and all that. That's really good. And then the thing that always goes underrated with Travion Henderson is this is a fantastic third down back. He is not an elite blocker, but he's pretty solid in pass pro, and I think they're going to work him up and really make sure he gets the hang of that immediately. And he is a great pass catcher out of the backfield. I think having that outlet, along with the Hunter Henry outlet that he's already worked with quite a bit, is going to make Drake May a lot more effective and give him a lot more options to get the ball out. And so I think Travion Henderson is going to impact the game in a lot of different ways for this Patriots team, and I think it's going to, really pay dividends on that offensive side of the football. Um, Quick thoughts on Travion Henderson if you guys want him, and then let's dive into the pass protection group up front.
Yeah. No, an exciting pick. I mean, you see those runs against like Penn State, Oregon, Notre Dame, some good defenses. He can play it. I agree that they're not quite Montgomery and Gibbs. That would be a stretch, but man, we see the potential. I think Stevenson is going to continue to get better. I was so excited when we got him out of Oklahoma State. The fumbles were a big issue last year. We need to solve that. Taking some of the load off with Henderson, who again can be that third down back, can be that speed. I think it's going to be a great combo.
Yeah. I actually think it's possible for you guys to try to replicate a little bit what the Eagles did the past season too,
Mm.
because Will Campbell can get downfield fast. So if you can run a lot of QB counter bash with Travion Henderson, because he does have that breakaway speed ability, and that play was so lethal for the Eagles because even when Jalen Hurts kept it, people were so scared of Saquon and people are going to be so scared of Travion Henderson. So I think Drake May can get some easy yardage without even getting touched. So
Hey, if you're telling me Henderson can be Saquon, then music to my ears.
he could make defenses think but yeah.
All right.
After that hurdle, I don't think anyone can be Saquon. So,
Hey, my dynasty RB1 baby.
all right. Moving on to the protection. I think we're gonna make this a little quicker because we already hit the tackles, and those are the big additions. But just overall, you think we've really leveled up this O line, Austin? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, another good pick that we didn't even mention was Jared Wilson,
Mm.
center out of Georgia. Don't get me started on UGA. I'm a yellow jacket to the grave, but I think he's a good player, another big SEC guy, really gonna shoulder up front. We haven't really had like a real solid center in a few years. I mean, some guys that we've plugged and played, but I think he's gonna be a real solid anchor to the offense. We have our left tackles, we have our right tackles. I think it's a great start. We can always make the offensive line better, but it is just absolutely levels ahead of what it was last year.
Um, Tyler, any thoughts on how do you think do you think there's a weak link in this O line, or do you think they've kind of patched it up now that you're at least like starter level across the board?
I think the weak link probably is Cole Strange. First round pick obviously did not turn out how we wanted to, but uh, Garrett Wilson could take his place. I know he plays center primarily. You can try shifting him out to guard if Cole Strange really does struggle. So I don't think it's the biggest concern out there, but I think right now he is the weakest link.
Okay. Yeah. Overall, though, much improved protection for the Patriots. I mean, that O line has been completely overworked, and we got to go back to Vrabel for a second. I think he's gonna really help boost the attitude of that room. I don't want to be unfair to the previous Patriots coaching staff, but I think we've seen the type of juice that Vrabel brings in terms of getting players to bring their lunch pail and go to work. And I think that's gonna in particular show up on the offensive line, and hopefully we're going to get much closer to that sort of all pro level guard play we've seen out of Onwenu in the past, because he's been great for years, but I think he's kind of suffered a bit and had a hard time, really keeping up that standard, with the offensive line kind of crumbling around him. So yeah, much improved. We're gonna go ahead and move on, and start discussing just a few of the defensive additions and what that's done. We're gonna hit that, and then we're gonna get into the season. So yeah, defensive additions. Tyler, what do you think about this reshape defense overall? We've kind of hit a lot of the major pieces that have been added, but they were a pretty good defense still last year. They were not bad. So where do you think this can go? And you got Christian Gonzalez hopefully playing a bigger role and all that. Where do you think this can go?
Well, I think the Patriots defense in the past actually lacked a little bit of star power,
Hmm.
other than obviously Gonzalez. And I think in free agency, they did get a couple stars. Milton Williams could be a star. Uh, Obviously, Carlton Davis could be too. I think they really did raise the ceiling of what the defense can be. I think it could be an elite unit. Uh, Still a little bit down on the current edge room in terms of being an elite high level
Hmm.
unit. But the interior pressure, one of the best pass rushing interior units in the league, in my opinion. And I think that's a good, like, solid start to build off of. And just say next year in the draft, you draft an edge rusher in the first round. Uh, I The money situation, I'm pretty sure the Patriots still have a decent amount of cap next year. If there is an edge that somehow hits free agency, you can maybe make a splash. But I think you're one edge rusher away from really building an elite defense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that we have a decent start on the rush, as you mentioned. We have guys like Keon White, who you mentioned earlier. Um, Big Yellow Jacket, big fan of Keon White. I think he has had a great past few seasons. I think he plugs in really well. You mentioned the star power with Milton Williams and Carlton Davis. We also got guys like Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar. I think they've been playing really good. We brought in Jabril Peppers, who we saw how he excelled in college, and then kind of fell off the radar a little bit going over to the Giants. But bringing him in the building, and he's kind of played quite well. Another guy, Kyle Duggar, not a big time name in the draft, got him later in the rounds. We've seen a lot of growth out of him. I think he's played really well. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be 11 All Pros out there, but I think it's going to be a good start. I think as the attitude continues to improve, and as you guys mentioned, maybe get another star guy out there, maybe get another edge rusher out. But I think really kind of at the top, coming down from Christian Gonzalez and Milton Williams, and kind of growing from there, I think it's a pretty solid unit that we're going to have going out on Sundays this year.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think that kind of wraps up our kind of evaluation, talk about the team, in terms of its individual pieces. Let's kind of talk going ahead, looking to the future. We're going to hit, this season, in a minute in terms of like our realistic expectations, but let's have a little bit of fun real quick and let's talk, future. What needs to be accomplished this season to set up the future, in terms of, especially in terms of developing Drake May, but what do you think that is? Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, my big wishes are one, to see what this new like offensive line looks like with these weapons. To see, all right, are these our guys at left tackle and right tackle? Are these our guys up front? And who do we need to replace to continue making it better? And same deal with the receiver room. Like, all right, is Stefon Diggs like our new like next 5 year receiver? Or is it more of like a buying us time type of guy? How does Kyle Williams take a big step his rookie year? What are we doing with guys like Jalen Polk or Booty, who we got in here? Like these guys that we're not 100% sold on yet. Really kind of finding out more truth there. And then over on the defensive side, again, like basically completely, we got some guys returning, but a big rebuild with a lot of these new guys to see how they mesh. And again, see who sticks and maybe who needs to be replaced a little bit. That's my big goal
Mhm.
with this year. I don't know if, I don't think we're going to see Drake Maye out there hoisting a Lombardi. So it really is seeing like, okay, how has this offseason gone and how can we continue to get better?
Yeah, really just identify what we have sort of off season and really give Drake May the ability to show you that. Tyler, do you
Mhm.
have any thoughts on top of that, or we can kind of talk a little bit about the other future stuff?
Yeah, I think we could go on to other
Okay.
stuff.
What needs to be accomplished in the next 3 years to think that this off season was a successful, well planned, good structure? What do you think about that, Tyler?
So, wait, can you rephrase that?
Yeah, sorry,
Like,
sorry. So next 3 years, what needs to happen that we look back and we're like, this new era of Patriots football that they've kind of kicked off, bringing Vrabel to take the reins and let him guide Drake May through. What needs to happen in the next 3 years to look back and say, yeah, this was the right path.
I think the one thing that matters, and this might actually be the only thing that I think matters, is just Drake May's development. If Drake May never actually becomes a solidified top 10 QB by that time or raises the team in general, I think it could be considered a failure after 3 years. But even if a defense just say falls apart, there's some older pieces there, it looks bad. If Drake May's looking good and you're confident that he like is an elite QB who will make you a perennial playoff team for years, other issues can be fixed. I think that's really what it comes down to, and I think that's also why in the draft they went this year full on setting May up for success because that's what really matters.
So yeah, I,
Yeah.
I I get where you're coming from. I'm gonna hold the Patriots to a little bit higher of a standard over the next 3 years. I think Drake May is certainly part of the equation, but I think you need to go toe to toe with some of these top AFC teams. I think you need to rival the Bills and push it and at least make those games feel very heated and competitive. You need to look like you belong out there on the field with them. And Drake May is a massive part of that. Don't get me wrong. Like he's really the key figure. Can you go toe to toe with these alien quarterbacks in the NFL? But when you face the Ravens, you can't be getting blown out and torched. You need to be competitive, show your mettle, show you can compete in the playoffs. So I think that means at least a playoff win or two over the next 3 years. But really, it is a stacked conference, so it's really when you hit those top teams, can by the end of that 3 years, can you start really taking it to them? Hopefully, a victory, some victories here and there, but can you really give them problems and show that with a few tweaks, with one addition, or one really good draft class, now you're at the top. That's what I want to see over the next 3 years to really justify what they've done in what I consider to be a very talented young quarterback. Austin.
Yeah, no, I echo everything you guys said. I mean, I agree that I want to see the next 3 years that Drake may jump to see that, okay, this commitment to May has been worthwhile and has been justified, and has been, yeah, actually comes to fruition. But also we need to start getting some success, getting back to beating the Jets twice a year, beating the Dolphins 3 or 4 games, and not getting embarrassed by the Bills because that's one thing that Robert Kraft really cares about is those divisional games and getting embarrassed by the Bills. I mean, I remember we scraped our way to the playoffs with Mac Jones, who man I thought was going to pan out, and then we decided to flip the switch, and it was the right time. And we got to that one playoff game, got spanked by the Bills. So I don't want any more of that. If we get to that point where Drake May is looking like Mac Jones, or it was like, okay, maybe it was a reach, maybe it looked good for a second, but there's just too many holes. It's not going to work out. We got to make that decision early, because it takes so long to develop that quarterback. Every time you draft a new quarterback, you sort of set yourself back 3 to 5 years, and then you got to go back to drafting around them, and you restart the whole rebuild. I really feel like it starts with head coach, quarterback, and everyone after that. And so these next 3 years are really saying like, is Drake May our guy, and how can we continue to set him up with for success? or how do we jump ship and who's the new guy?
Hmm. Yeah, fantastic. All right, yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same page there. We'll see what they do. Talking about expectations this season, though, bringing it back to reality a little bit and just focusing on what we think we're definitely going to see. Patriots actually have the second easiest strength of schedule according to Sharp Analytics this upcoming year. Sharp Football Analysis, my bad. And most of the sites, most of the other sites I've seen agree they're a top three easiest strength of schedule team, and it's there's a lot of teams that they have on that schedule that should be good targets to beat up. So what do you think win loss wise, Tyler? Take it away.
Uh, I think anywhere from the range of, I think the floor is probably set at 7. I was leaning 6, but no, I'm thinking 7. It really is an easy schedule. And I think the ceiling is probably at 11 right now. Maybe, actually, no, maybe 12. I would say 12 for the ceiling. I would be surprised if it is 12, but I think there is a reality just based on the teams they face that it could be 12. But I think in terms of team's future, I think they could win a playoff game, but I think that's it. I think right when they run into the Ravens, Chiefs, or Bills, I think that's where the journey ends.
Austin.
Yeah, I'm somewhat in a similar boat, maybe slightly more optimistic. I mean, just looking at the first four games, we got the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Steelers, the Panthers. In my mind, those are all four very winnable games. Even down to Miami, playing the Dolphins there, we don't really know what the Dolphins look like. You know, they've had some ups, they've had some downs. Looked like Tyreek Hill might be leaving at one point. I was even thinking maybe he's coming up to New England. We don't really know what's going on with like Tua. You know, maybe he's coming back, but that head issue is something to be watched really closely this year. So I'm not too worried about the Dolphins. And I think the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Panthers are all teams that are kind of in weird spots. I can see the Steelers going out there and having another, just Mike Tomlin brooded out win. But I think the way the Patriots are playing is different than, a lot of those wins those Steelers seem to be getting is those in division games where they know it's just going to be like a run at every game, and maybe it's a coin toss and they get a few of them against the Browns or whatever. I think those four games set us up for success. Week 5, going into Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. As much as I want to beat the Bills, two capital L's in that name, hasn't been lately. We need to get back to winning both of those games a year, but I think that Sunday night game, the lights might be a little bright for the new team. Call it 4-1 after that. And then after that, again, I feel like it still stays fairly easy. Got the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons. I feel like all of those are very winnable games. And then we go down to Tampa and play the Buccaneers. I really like how Baker Mayfield's been looking. I've always been high on Baker Mayfield. I thought the Browns tossed him to the wayside for no reason. I thought he was the only reason that they had any success. I really like him. I think that's going to be a tough game. Maybe line us up for a loss down there in Tampa. And then again, another interesting stretch. Interesting stretch. We got the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants. I think those Jets and Giants games should definitely be winnable. Who knows against the Bengals? We beat the Bengals last year, and I think we've only obviously gotten better. So I don't see any reason why we can't continue and beat them again. Then got the bye week, and after that, Bills, Ravens, Giants, Dolphins to finish out the season. I think that Bills game is going to be tough. The Ravens game is going to be hard, but I feel like we can finish out with Jets and Dolphins with some wins, depending on how those divisional games go and how those also kind of Jets rebuilding a little bit, Dolphins still trying to build. Depending how they look next season, I really think like we're looking anywhere from 10 to 12, 13-ish wins, but still setting that floor somewhere around 7, just depending on how the team meshes, how the protection's really looking, and how the defense is playing together. Because some of these other teams can figure it out before us. There's teams like the Steelers that are trying to do the same thing.
So I think on all accounts I'm a little more extreme than you guys. I see the downside all the way down to 5 wins. I think this could be with the defense comprised of that many players who have had injury issues and enough new pieces that if things just don't mesh well, it could really be problematic. I'm worried that you could see serious downside on that end. And then all it takes is, oh wait, Will Campbell's a guard. Uh, oh wait, our new center can't adapt to the NFL quite that well. Morgan Moses playing in in really important games can't quite figure it out all that well. I think too there's all that defensive change just not working out, and then that offensive line just not meshing. I don't think the weapons are good enough yet to really make me feel like in a floor scenario that they can get past that. And so that's my worry, even with a big jump from May, that like you could see that floor. But I'm definitely not leaning into that. I don't think that's too likely. I think Vrabel's going to do a really good job staving off any of those issues. And so when I look at the ceiling, I think Drake May could be a top five quarterback by the end of this next year. I think they could go into the playoffs. I think they can win a game, and I think they can be competitive in another one if everything goes right this year. I think you're looking at 13, 14 wins being that ceiling, and especially with that easy schedule. And I know that's a little dramatic to say, but man, if all these pieces come together, if Harold Landry, we haven't talked about him much, if he plays well like a star, that defensive line, suddenly they're not missing that edge you're talking about, Tyler.
Hmm.
It could all kind of just fall together. The pieces are there. Like they've got the talent to do it, in my opinion. It's just about it all clicking, and it's difficult to do. It's a ceiling for a reason, but I do think it's there. So yeah, I'm gonna give us all one quick last thought on the Patriots. Anything you didn't hear brought up, or anything you just want to say you're looking forward to seeing this season, and let's wrap it up. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, so pretty much just to wrap it up, I think I really have liked what the Patriots did this offseason. We haven't really talked about what we thought about about what the GM has actually done. I really do like what they're doing. They're not really rushing it, but they're also not being overly patient. They're trying to win under Drake May's rookie contract, which I think is something that is so valuable, especially in a day where so many QBs are getting paid a ridiculous amount of money right now. So you have that advantage. Take it. And no, I do like what the Patriots are doing, and I think their window is clear. Everyone in the organization knows when it is. But yeah, I do kind of agree with a lot of the points where you made where they do need to start looking competitive against the top teams because those teams are going to stay good. Honestly, I think Chiefs aren't going to get any worse. Buffalo's not getting any worse. Bengals probably are going to stay around the same too if you want to include them in that tier. But I don't know. Okay, they actually have to be better than the Bengals. I will say that definitely. But no, I do like what the Patriots are doing right now. I think they're on pace of getting there.
All right, final
Yeah.
thoughts, Austin.
Yeah, I agree. I feel good after this offseason. I love the Vrabel hire. I'm, of course, in love with my man Drake May. I think that the players that we took in the draft and offseason acquisitions were an absolutely great start, and I think the defense is looking good. I'm excited by it. I think the only way that we know where our weaknesses are is to stress it. So, come week one, two, three, we'll start to see who's not actually panning out. But I think that, Kyle and like what Tyler said, we've been a little bit aggressive. We've had the most cap space for a few years. We didn't really spend a lot last year. We spent it this year. We've been aggressive. We've gone out. We're trying to meet that window, kind of trying to do a 49ers-esque move with kind of trying to win with a guy like Purdy, win with a guy like Drake May in his rookie contract. So as we continue to surround him, we got the coaches in the building. I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like.
Awesome. Yeah, my one final thought is just we didn't really touch on this. I think there's a chance the Patriots are like one of the most fun teams to watch in the NFL this year. I think Vrabel's Titans when they had Derrick Henry and AJ Brown and were really rolling. Were kind of the Lions before the Lions, and they took it to some bad teams. And the Patriots are going to see a lot of bad teams this year with questionable defenses. I think there's a chance that the schedule makers are going to regret not putting them in more primetime games, and they might get flexed in later in the season. And I just think the football product, from an entertainment perspective, could be really fun if you see the Travion Henderson upside, if you see the Drake May upside, if you see the offensive line upside. They could just really start, getting on teams and taking it to them and just putting up a lot of points. So I think that'd be pretty cool to see. Thanks for watching. This is the second episode we've had to save the franchise. We're gonna have more coming soon. If you're watching, please give us a subscribe and a like. We'd really appreciate it.